My partner, Detective Sarah Turner, and I were accustomed to the eerie and desolate, having patrolled the outskirts of our small town for years. But nothing could have prepared us for what awaited us on that fateful night. The call came in, a disturbance reported at the long-abandoned Azure Sands Resort. We were to investigate, standard protocol. The resort, once a bustling retreat, now stood as a decaying relic of forgotten summers. The moon hung low in the sky as we approached, casting an ethereal glow on the dilapidated structures. As we ventured further into the silent resort, an unsettling stillness settled over the air. The only sounds were our own footsteps and the distant creaks of the deteriorating buildings. We exchanged nervous glances but pressed on, flashlights cutting through the inky darkness. The resort was a maze of crumbling walls and overgrown foliage reclaiming its territory. Broken windows whispered tales of past laughter and splashing poolside. We made our way toward the main building, the grand hotel that loomed like a ghost in the night. The lobby, once adorned with polished marble floors, now lay covered in a layer of dust and debris. The air was heavy with the scent of decay, a mix of mildew and memories long forgotten. As we cautiously explored, strange noises reverberated through the hallways, a symphony of creaks and groans that seemed to echo with unseen secrets. Our radios crackled to life with an indistinct whisper, and then silence. The communication glitch wasn't uncommon in these remote areas, but it heightened the tension. We decided to split up, each taking a different floor of the hotel to cover more ground. I ascended a creaky staircase, the echoes of my footsteps mingling with the eerie sounds of the building settling. The air grew colder with each step, and a feeling of unease settled over me. The once grand halls were now shrouded in shadows, and the dim light of my flashlight danced on the peeling wallpaper. As I reached the top floor, a distant noise caught my attention, a soft, rhythmic hiss, like the whisper of the wind through tall grass. My hand tightened around the grip of my flashlight as I cautiously followed the sound down a narrow corridor. The hallway ended at a set of double doors, slightly ajar. I pushed them open, revealing a vast ballroom with a decaying chandelier hanging from the ceiling. The rhythmic hiss grew louder, and my flashlight revealed the source, a massive form coiled in the corner. I staggered back in shock. It was a snake, but unlike any I had ever seen. Its scales shimmered with an otherworldly sheen, and its size was monstrous, filling the ballroom with its presence. The creature was dormant, curled in upon itself, yet a primal fear gripped me as I realized the enormity of the situation. I radioed Sarah urgently, describing the bizarre encounter. The response was static, and a sinking feeling set in. The snake's slumber had been disturbed by our presence, and the once muted hiss turned into a menacing growl. My flashlight flickered as the colossal serpent uncoiled, its eyes fixated on me. Panic set in, and I stumbled backward, crashing into a table. The serpent's massive head swayed, and its eyes glowed with an otherworldly intensity. I sprinted down the hallway, heart pounding in my chest, as the monstrous serpent pursued. The once silent resort now echoed with the sounds of a desperate chase. The snake's movements were swift, its body sliding effortlessly through the decaying corridors. My radio crackled to life, Sarah's voice tense and frantic. She, too, had encountered a serpent on her floor. The creatures were not alone. They were a pair, guardians of some long-forgotten secret. We regrouped in the lobby, the massive serpents coiling around the hotel like sentinels of an ancient curse. The resort, it seemed, was their territory, and we were intruders in a realm where nature had claimed dominion. Our radios, our only lifeline, were rendered useless. The serpents had disrupted the signals, leaving us isolated and vulnerable. The resort, once a symbol of luxury, now felt like a prison, its crumbling walls closing in around us. As we huddled in the lobby, the serpents circled, their eyes fixed on us with an unsettling intelligence. The once enchanted moonlit night had transformed into a nightmare. Escape seemed impossible, and our only hope lay in understanding the mystery that bound these ancient creatures to the resort. As Sarah and I stood in the lobby, the serpents coiled outside, we knew we had to find a way out of this nightmarish trap. The resort, once a place of leisure, had become a labyrinthine prison guarded by monstrous entities. Our flashlights barely penetrated the darkness as we cautiously ventured deeper into the hotel, seeking clues to the mystery that bound the serpents to this forsaken place. Every creak of the floorboards and every rustle of the wind outside sent shivers down our spines. The trail of decay led us to a forgotten library, its shelves covered in dust and cobwebs. As we sifted through old books and manuscripts, a faded photograph caught my eye. It depicted a group of people, their faces obscured by time, standing triumphantly in front of a colossal snake, a creature much like the ones now haunting the resort. The discovery raised more questions than answers. Why were these serpents here, and what connection did they share with the people in the photograph? The answer, it seemed, lay hidden within the history of Azure Sands Resort. Our exploration led us to an underground chamber, its entrance concealed beneath layers of rubble. The air grew damp, and the sound of distant water echoed through the subterranean passages. As we descended into the darkness, we stumbled upon an ancient mural that depicted a ritual involving the serpents. The mural spoke of an ancient cult that worshipped these creatures as guardians of forbidden knowledge. The cult believed that the serpents, in a state of hibernation, held the power to unlock hidden truths. As we deciphered the cryptic symbols surrounding the mural, it became clear that our arrival had unwittingly disrupted the balance that had kept the serpents dormant for centuries. The underground passages seemed to stretch endlessly, revealing forgotten chambers and corridors. The air became heavier, and a distant, ominous hum echoed through the walls. We pressed on, determined to understand the nature of the curse that bound the serpents to the resort. Our journey brought us to a cavernous chamber where the serpents' hisses intertwined with the haunting melody of water dripping from stalactites. At the center of the chamber lay a colossal stone altar, adorned with symbols mirroring those in the mural. It became apparent that the cult had performed rituals to keep the serpents in check. As we examined the altar, a low rumble reverberated through the cavern. The serpents, aware of our presence, slithered through hidden passages, converging on our location. Panic set in as we realized that the cult's rituals had been disrupted, and the serpents were awakening from their hibernation. We raced back through the underground labyrinth, the serpents in pursuit. The once familiar passages now felt like a maze of uncertainty, and our breaths echoed in the suffocating darkness. Our flashlights flickered, threatening to plunge us into total obscurity. Emerging back into the lobby, we found ourselves cornered. The serpents coiled around the entrance, their eyes glowing with an unearthly intensity. The ritual had been disturbed, and the ancient guardians sought to reclaim their dominion. Trapped in the lobby, our flashlights flickering in the dim light, the serpents closed in with a predatory grace. The echoes of their hisses reverberated through the cavernous space, and the once grand entrance of the resort now felt like the gates to an otherworldly abyss. As the colossal serpents circled, I racked my brain for a solution. The cult's disrupted rituals had unleashed forces beyond our control, and the serpents, now fully awake, seemed intent on exacting a toll for the intrusion. Sarah and I moved cautiously, our every step met with a mirrored movement from the serpents. The air thickened with tension as we searched for an escape route. The ruined lobby offered no solace, its crumbling walls closing in around us. In a desperate attempt to divert the serpents, we stumbled upon an old service elevator hidden in the shadows. The aged machinery groaned to life as we ascended, leaving the serpents below, their eyes glowing with an eerie frustration. The elevator doors opened to a darkened hallway, its silence broken only by the distant hum of machinery. We cautiously moved forward, our flashlights cutting through the gloom. The resort, it seemed, held secrets deeper than we could have imagined. Our exploration led us to a forgotten laboratory, its equipment rusted and covered in cobwebs. Among the debris, we discovered research notes detailing experiments conducted on the serpents. The cult, it seemed, had sought to harness the power of these creatures for their own gain. The notes hinted at an antidote, a substance capable of pacifying the serpents and restoring the delicate balance that had been shattered. Armed with this knowledge, we delved further into the bowels of the resort, guided by the cryptic instructions in the research notes. Our journey brought us to a hidden chamber, its walls adorned with symbols that mirrored those on the altar in the cavern. A series of vials containing the antidote lay on a long-forgotten worktable. The cult had devised a method to subdue the serpents, but the ritual had been lost to time. As we gathered the vials, the serpents' hisses grew louder, their movements reverberating through the walls. The resort seemed to pulse with an otherworldly energy, as if the very fabric of reality was strained by the awakening serpents. Armed with the antidote, we retraced our steps back to the lobby, where the serpents still lingered. The cult's rituals had bound them to this place, and the disrupted balance demanded a resolution. The confrontation was inevitable. The serpents, sensing our presence, slithered toward us, their eyes gleaming with a mixture of curiosity and hostility. As we prepared to administer the antidote, a shadowy figure emerged from the darkness, a spectral presence clad in tattered robes, the remnants of the cult that had once controlled the serpents. The figure spoke in hushed tones, revealing the consequences of our actions. The awakening serpents were a harbinger of a greater force, a primordial entity that sought to breach the veil between worlds. The cult, misguided in their attempts to control this force, had inadvertently set in motion a chain of events that threatened to unleash chaos upon the realm. As the figure faded back into the shadows, we faced a dilemma. The serpents, now fully awake, were both guardians and conduits to the primordial force. Administering the antidote would subdue them, but it risked leaving the delicate balance between worlds in jeopardy. In the ominous silence that followed, the choice weighed heavy on our shoulders. The serpents, their eyes fixed upon us, seemed to hold the key to a mystery that transcended the abandoned resort. As we stood in the lobby, torn between administering the antidote and preserving the delicate balance, the serpents continued to coil, their movements reflecting the intensity of the situation. The spectral figure's words lingered in the air, hinting at a greater force that the cult had unwittingly awakened. A distant rumble echoed through the resort, and the shadows seemed to writhe with an otherworldly energy. The serpents, sensing the impending threat, grew more agitated. It became clear that time was running out, and a decision had to be made. We hesitated, caught between the desire to restore the disrupted balance and the fear of what the primordial force might unleash upon the world. The antidote, a small vial clutched in my trembling hand, held the power to either pacify the serpents or risk opening a gateway to an unimaginable realm. In that moment of indecision, the resort seemed to pulse with an ancient energy. The walls, once silent witnesses to the passage of time, whispered of forgotten rituals and untold mysteries. The very air quivered with anticipation, as if the realm between worlds hung in delicate suspension. Suddenly, a series of low growls emanated from the serpents. Their eyes, once gleaming with hostility, now reflected a strange mixture of resignation and acceptance. It was as if they, too, understood the impending danger and the need for a resolution. With a shared glance, Sarah and I made our decision. We approached the serpents cautiously, the vial of antidote poised in my hand. The creatures, their massive forms coiled and majestic, seemed to acknowledge our presence. As the first drops of the antidote touched the serpent's scales, a subtle transformation began. The hisses softened, and the predatory gleam in their eyes gave way to a tranquil gaze. The once menacing guardians of the resort now appeared almost serene, their colossal forms settling into a state of subdued repose. The spectral figure materialized once more, its presence hovering at the edge of our perception. It spoke of the delicate balance that had been restored, but warned that the primordial force, though momentarily appeased, still lingered on the fringes of reality. the figure revealed the final revelation, that the resort, with its ancient rituals and awakened serpents, acted as a barrier holding back the eldritch force seeking entry into our world. The disrupted balance had prompted the serpents to awaken, not as aggressors, but as guardians standing against an imminent threat. With the spectral figure's words echoing in our minds, we made our way out of the resort. The serpents, now pacified by the antidote, coiled around the entrance in silent vigil. As we stepped into the moonlit night, a strange calm settled over the surroundings. The resort, once a place of mystery and danger, now stood as a testament to the fragile threads that bound our reality. The serpents, their giant forms fading into the shadows, seemed to acknowledge our departure. In the distance, the rumble that had heralded the impending danger grew louder. The eldritch force, held at bay by the restored balance, lingered just beyond the veil. The mysteries of the resort, the awakened serpents, and the ancient rituals now lay in the realm of the unknown, their secrets guarded by the silent guardians we had encountered. As we walked away from the abandoned resort, the moon hung low in the sky, casting long shadows on the path ahead. The serpents, once feared and misunderstood, had become enigmatic protectors standing against forces that transcended the boundaries of human understanding. Our journey had unraveled a tale of forgotten cults, primordial forces, and a delicate dance between worlds. The mysteries of the abandoned resort remained, shrouded in a veil of revelation that hinted at the vast, unseen realms lurking just beyond our perception. And so, as we left the forsaken place behind, we couldn't shake the feeling that the story was far from over. The eldritch force, though momentarily subdued, whispered of a presence that lingered in the shadows, a presence that watched, waited, and held the key to a mystery that stretched beyond the confines of the abandoned resort. As the moon cast its silvery glow upon the landscape, we ventured into the night, haunted by the echoes of a journey that had unraveled the threads of reality and left us standing on the precipice of the unknown.
These all started 2 weeks ago when I was returning from my office and it started raining. I went towards an old hotel, parked my bike, and went towards the elevator. The persistent hum of the elevator was the only sound that resonated through the deserted lobby. I pressed the button for the 10th floor, and as the doors creaked shut, an unsettling sense of foreboding swept over me. The flickering lights above me created a strobe-like effect, and suddenly darkness enveloped my consciousness. When I opened my eyes, the cold, sterile air of abandonment greeted me. The sterile smell of disinfectants lingered, and the pale green walls of what appeared to be a hospital surrounded me. Disoriented, I stumbled down the desolate corridor, the flickering lights casting erratic shadows on the peeling paint. 3 doors stood before me, each one beckoning with an eerie allure. As I reached for the handle of the first door, a sudden force pulled me through, and I found myself hurtling down an endless abyss. My screams were swallowed by the abyss, and just as I thought my descent would never end, I jolted awake back in the elevator. Haunted by the inexplicable experience, I returned home, the images of the abandoned hospital etched in my mind. Yet curiosity gnawed at me like a persistent itch. The following day, unable to resist the pull, I once again entered the ominous elevator at the same time. As the doors closed, a sudden wave of dizziness overcame me. When my eyes opened, I was back in the abandoned hospital, the echoes of my footsteps amplifying in the eerie silence. This time, however, caution guided my steps. The 3 doors loomed ahead, and I hesitated before selecting the second one. Upon entering, I encountered a surreal sight, a majestic creature resembling a unicorn with iridescent feathers akin to a peacock. Yet again, I awoke at the familiar elevator, my heart racing with the memory of the monstrous transformation. The boundary between reality and nightmare blurred, but an insatiable curiosity griped me like a moth drawn to an ominous flame. Determined to unravel the mystery, I returned to the elevator once more the following day. The door sealed shut and an otherworldly lethargy wrapped around me. When consciousness returned, the hospital corridors stretched endlessly before me. This time, I approached the last unopened door with trepidation. As it creaked open, a swarm of scorpions emerged, their pincers clacking menacingly. Panic surged through me as I stumbled backward, hastily retreating to the elevator. Back in the safety of a dimly lit compartment, I felt a chilling realization settle over me. The hospital, the doors, the creatures, it was a nightmarish carousel with each spin offering a different horror. The elevator had become a gateway to a twisted dimension, a purgatory between dreams and reality. Haunted by the grotesque images and the growing fear that reality itself was unraveling, I returned home with a heavy heart. The nights became restless, plagued by the echoes of the hospital and the creatures that lurked behind the doors. Sleep became an elusive sanctuary, as if the nightmares were seeping into my waking hours. One fateful night, exhaustion overcame me and I succumbed to the embrace of sleep. But the transition was far from peaceful. Paralyzed and helpless, I found myself trapped in a realm where nightmares materialized. Millions of spiders and scorpions skittered across my bed, their cold legs tracing lines of dread across my skin. Their venomous bites burned and the excruciating pain intensified with each passing moment. I attempted to scream, but my voice was stolen by the paralysis. The room pulsated with a malevolent energy as the arachnids voraciously devoured my flesh. The sensation was excruciatingly real, and I writhed in silent agony, tormented by the illusion that reality had merged with the nightmares of the hospital. As morning light filtered through the curtains, I woke up gasping, drenched in sweat. The boundaries between the dream and waking life had become indistinguishable, and a sinister truth dawned upon me. The elevator had become a conduit between the realms of nightmares and reality. Determined to break free from the nightmarish cycle, I avoided the elevator like a cursed relic. However, the insidious pull remained, an ever-present force tempting me to unravel the mysteries that lurked beyond the rusted doors. Days turned into weeks, and the line between waking and dreaming continued to blur. The once familiar world warped into a surrealist nightmare, and the creatures that haunted my dreams manifested in the corners of my vision during waking hours. Haunted and tormented, I grappled with the fragility of my sanity. The elevator, once a mundane contraption, had become a malevolent force, a portal to a twisted dimension where nightmares materialized with an alarming fidelity. As the harrowing cycle persisted, I questioned the nature of my reality. Was I trapped in a perpetual nightmare, or had the line between dreams and waking life disintegrated entirely? The once ordinary elevator had become a harbinger of horror, and the shadows it cast loomed ever darker as I descended into the abyss of my own fractured. In the midst of a seemingly ordinary day, I found myself immersed in a surreal dream where the glow of a video game console illuminated my room. Out of nowhere, a 9-year-old girl appeared, familiar yet unrelated. We seamlessly bonded over gaming, storytelling, and playing with toys. Strangely, she felt like a sister despite the dissimilarity to my actual sibling. The dream twisted when she left for a mysterious phone call, warning me not to question its nature. Curiosity led me to spy on her during a second call, only to discover her with unnerving, lifeless white eyes. Frightened, I returned to my game, and upon her return, she scolded me for the intrusion. Her sudden decision to leave at an ungodly hour left me puzzled. Ignoring my questions, she walked away, and as I grabbed her hand, her face froze in a lifeless expression. A mysterious touch distracted me briefly, and she vanished. Back home, the lingering question of her whereabouts was interrupted by a call from an unknown number, revealing a disconcerting live recording of myself from above. Transported to another room, I faced my uncle's demand to retrieve something. The shocking sight of a dismembered body on his bed plunged me into fear. His unsettling transformation ensued, and despite my attempts to escape, he pursued me relentlessly. The dream abruptly shifted with another phone call, whisking me away to what seemed like a semblance of reality. Struggling to shake off the unsettling dream, I resumed my daily routine. However, the dream's grasp persisted, pulling me back into its clutches with each subsequent phone call. This time, I found myself in a room with a hanging, burnt-faced body. Terror seized me, propelling me into flight towards the garden where the disfigured girl from earlier manifested once again. Her appearance was altered and haunting, legs twisted backward, face half-burned. She divulged the consequences of my actions, interrupting her phone call had cursed me. According to her, I would experience a recurring dream every 10 minutes, confronted with a life or death choice, answer the call or endure dire consequences. The curse proved contagious, transferring to those who dared to interrupt my calls. A surreal dance of horror and consequence unfolded, blurring the boundaries between my waking reality and the cryptic dream realm. In the unsettling cycle of this recurring dream, I never truly woke up. 10 minutes later, another phone call loomed, and I found myself once again holding my phone, preparing for the impending nightmare. Desperate for a solution, I approached my parents, recounting the eerie incidents and imploring them not to look at my phone when the call arrived. Despite my warnings, they dismissed my concerns. As predicted, the call came, and I succumbed to unconsciousness. In the dream, I found myself in another room of my house, upstairs. Descending to the lower floor, a chilling sight awaited me, a lifeless version of myself seated in a chair. My parents futilely attempted to wake me, unaware of my spectral presence. It seemed as if my spirit had detached from my lifeless body. Suddenly, a soft touch on my hand drew my attention. I turned to find the little girl, her presence a strange mix of comfort and foreboding. She offered a solution, claiming she could help me break free from the curse. However, her proposed remedy shocked me. I had to sacrifice her. I recoiled at the thought as she revealed her own tragic tale of losing a brother to a heart attack. Torn between my reluctance and her plea, she cried, expressing her inability to witness my suffering. She confessed that she was already dead, a spirit in the first place, visible only in dreams. To break the curse, she urged me to end her existence within the dream, promising relief for both of us. Stricken with sadness, I hesitated, grappling with the weight of the decision. In a somber moment, she handed me a knife, urging me to end her suffering and, in turn, free myself from the haunting cycle of dreams. The gravity of the choice hung heavy in the air, leaving me to confront a moral dilemma within the confines of the surreal and haunting narrative.
I've got a story to share, a tale born from the lofty ambitions of science, the pursuit of a dream so noble it cast a shadow on the very essence of humanity. You see, I'm a biotechnologist, or at least I was, and my team and I embarked on a journey that forever altered the trajectory of our lives. It all started with a vision of a world where the physically challenged could regain what they had lost, where limbs could be regenerated, and a cure for the seemingly incurable lay within our grasp. Our creation, the RegenX vaccine, held the promise of a brighter future. Little did we know, our pursuit of progress would lead us down a harrowing path of unintended consequences. This is a story of hubris and redemption, of the fine line between playing God and the responsibility that comes with tampering with the very fabric of life. My name is Kenny, a biotechnologist on a mission that transcends scientific boundaries. Our team of 5 dedicated researchers had a lofty goal to create a groundbreaking vaccine that would not only cure physically challenged individuals but also enable them to regenerate lost limbs. We envisioned a future where those with physical limitations could lead normal lives once again. Months of tireless research and countless experiments led us to a promising breakthrough. Our vaccine, named RegenX, held the potential to revolutionize the lives of countless people. It was a beacon of hope for those who had longed for the chance to reclaim their bodies. As the project lead, I felt a profound sense of responsibility and excitement. Our journey was marked by late nights in the lab, shared victories, and occasional setbacks that only fueled our determination. The team comprised experts in various fields, from genetics to immunology, each bringing a unique perspective to the table. The first phase involved testing the vaccine on animal subjects, and the results were nothing short of extraordinary. Limbs regrew and the animals exhibited a level of vitality we hadn't anticipated. Encouraged by our success, we proceeded to the next crucial step: human trials. 5 willing participants, each with their own story of resilience, became the pioneers of our experiment. The atmosphere in the lab was charged with a mix of anticipation and anxiety as we administered RegenX to our human subjects. Initial signs were promising, subtle hints of tissue regeneration and increased mobility. However, as days passed, a disquieting realization began to dawn upon us. The subjects, once hopeful individuals seeking a better life, started undergoing an unforeseen transformation. What was meant to be a cure had unleashed something sinister within them. The first signs of trouble manifested in heightened aggression and a loss of cognitive function. The very people we sought to help were becoming unrecognizable, their humanity slipping away like sand through our fingers. It was a grim twist of fate that none of us had foreseen. Our once hopeful project had taken a dark turn. The very vaccine that held the promise of renewal had transformed our subjects into monstrous beings, driven by an insatiable rage. As their bodies evolved beyond recognition, their minds succumbed to a primal savagery. In the face of this unforeseen catastrophe, our team now faced not only the ethical dilemma of our actions, but also the urgent need to contain the monstrous consequences of our experiment gone awry. The lab, once filled with the hum of progress, now echoed with the haunting screams of those we had unwittingly turned into something beyond our control. As we grappled with the repercussions of our scientific pursuit, the shadow of responsibility loomed large over each member of our team. The cure we had so passionately sought had become a curse, and our journey to heal had unleashed a nightmare we could never have imagined. The lab, once a haven of scientific progress, now resembled a scene from a horror story. The air was thick with tension as we witnessed the horrifying transformation of our subjects into creatures that defied nature. The very essence of our intentions had spiraled into a nightmare, and our team was thrust into a desperate struggle to contain the fallout. It didn't take long for chaos to erupt within our once meticulously organized workspace. The transformed subjects, now grotesque and feral, broke free from their restraints, tearing through the lab with a newfound strength and ferocity. Panic spread like wildfire among the research team as we grappled with the harsh reality of what we had unwittingly unleashed. My mind raced as I took in the nightmarish scene. Colleagues, once united by a common goal, now scattered in fear, their expressions mirroring the horror reflected in my own eyes. The sound of alarms blared in the background, competing with the guttural roars of the transformed subjects. In the midst of the chaos, I gathered what remained of our team. Fear and guilt etched on each face, we huddled in a makeshift strategy session, desperately brainstorming ways to contain the monstrous consequences of our experiment. "We have to find a way to reverse this," I urged, my voice strained with a mix of determination and remorse. "We can't let this be the legacy of our work." But the reality was harsh. Reversing the effects seemed like an insurmountable challenge, given the unprecedented nature of the transformation. Our once promising cure had become an uncontrollable force, leaving us with no choice but to confront the consequences head-on. As we moved through the disarrayed lab, dodging the erratic movements of the transformed subjects, a profound sense of responsibility weighed on each step. The line between savior and destroyer had blurred, and the consequences of our actions became an inescapable burden. In our desperate quest for a solution, we delved into the depths of our research, scouring through data and revisiting the initial stages of the project. The answers, we hoped, lay hidden within the labyrinth of our own creation. But time was not on our side. The transformed subjects, now resembling nightmarish amalgamations of flesh and fury, continued their rampage, leaving a trail of destruction in their wake. Our once hopeful endeavor had become a race against time, not only to salvage our own humanity but to prevent the unleashed monstrosities from wreaking havoc beyond the confines of our lab. As we grappled with the ethical dilemma of whether to call for external help or attempt a clandestine resolution, the walls of the lab seemed to close in on us. The distant dream of healing and renewal had transformed into a living nightmare, and the responsibility for the consequences rested squarely on our shoulders. In the face of this unimaginable crisis, we stood united, a team bound by the shared weight of our creation. The journey that had begun with the noble pursuit of a cure now unfolded into a harrowing tale of scientific ambition gone awry, forcing us to confront not only the monsters we had unintentionally created but the demons within ourselves. Fueled by a mix of desperation and guilt, our team embarked on a perilous journey to find a solution within the very depths of our research. The once promising RegenX vaccine, now a Pandora's box of horrors, had pushed us to the brink of our scientific understanding. Our every step echoed with the weight of responsibility as we navigated through the chaos within the lab. As we delved into the labyrinth of data, we uncovered a series of anomalies in the genetic coding of the RegenX formula. It became clear that our pursuit of regeneration had unwittingly triggered an unchecked evolution, an unpredictable cascade of genetic transformations that our current knowledge couldn't comprehend. "We need to isolate the core anomaly," shouted Sarah, our geneticist, her eyes flickering with a mix of urgency and determination. "If we can identify the root cause, we might have a chance at finding a way to reverse the effects." Armed with this newfound focus, we forged ahead, barricading ourselves in a secure section of the lab. The transformed subjects, now driven by an instinctual aggression, pounded against the reinforced doors. Time was slipping away, and with each passing moment, our hopes of redemption dimmed. The research team, once fueled by the pursuit of progress, now found itself entangled in a moral quagmire. The fine line between playing God and the responsibility of rectifying our unintended consequences became increasingly blurred. The weight of the situation pressed down on us like a relentless force, threatening to crush our resolve. Days turned into nights as we toiled tirelessly, poring over genetic sequences, running simulations, and experimenting with various antidote formulations. The once sterile and organized lab now bore the scars of our frantic efforts, a testament to the internal struggle of our collective conscience. In the midst of the chaos, a breakthrough emerged. Sarah, with a mix of relief and trepidation, identified the elusive anomaly. It was a minute deviation in the genetic code, a single element that had triggered the nightmarish evolution. With this discovery, a spark of hope ignited within us, but it was a fragile flame in the face of the relentless storm we had unleashed. The challenge now lay in developing an antidote that could counteract the effects of the anomaly without causing further harm. Each member of the team contributed their expertise, their skills pushed to the limit in a desperate attempt to salvage what remained of our original vision. As the antidote took shape, administered cautiously to one of the transformed subjects, we held our collective breath. The creature, once a human test subject, convulsed and writhed as the antidote fought against the monstrous evolution. The air in the lab grew thick with tension until, finally, a moment of eerie silence settled over the room. The transformed subject lay still, a flicker of humanity returning to its eyes. A sigh of relief rippled through the team, tempered by the knowledge that our journey was far from over. The antidote showed promise, but the unpredictability of the situation lingered, casting a long shadow over our hopes of redemption. In the wake of this fragile success, the team faced a daunting task, administering the antidote to the remaining subjects and, in doing so, confronting the consequences of our actions. The once united goal of healing now demanded a sacrifice, a reckoning with the ethical quandaries that had led us down this perilous path. As we prepared to face the transformed subjects once more, the lab echoed with the whispers of remorse and determination. The journey that began with the promise of a cure had transformed into a desperate odyssey of redemption, a quest to reclaim not only the bodies of the afflicted but the shattered fragments of our own humanity. Armed with the antidote, our team ventured back into the chaos that had become our lab. The transformed subjects, once our hopeful volunteers, now lurked in the shadows, their monstrous forms a haunting reminder of our unchecked ambition. The air was thick with tension as we approached the first subject, the syringe filled with the antidote trembling in my hand. "Steady," I whispered to myself, the weight of the responsibility pressing down on my shoulders. The line between salvation and condemnation was razor-thin, and our every action felt like a delicate dance on the edge of an ethical precipice. The first injection unfolded like a silent plea for forgiveness. The antidote flowed into the veins of the transformed subject, its effects unfolding before our anxious eyes. The creature convulsed, its roars echoing through the lab, and for a moment it seemed as though our efforts were in vain. But then, as the convulsions subsided, a spark of recognition flickered in its eyes. The monstrous exterior gave way to a semblance of humanity, a fragile redemption that hung in the balance. The room, once a battleground, now bore witness to a silent victory, the first step in reclaiming what we had lost. Encouraged by this small triumph, we moved on to the next subject, then the next. With each injection, the tide of monstrous evolution receded and the glimmer of humanity returned. The lab, once a realm of nightmares, now echoed with the sounds of hope, the labored breaths of the subjects as they emerged from the grip of savagery. However, the sense of relief was tempered by the knowledge that our redemption was incomplete. The transformed subjects, though restored to a semblance of humanity, carried the scars of their ordeal. The ethical questions loomed larger than ever. What right did we have to play with the very essence of life? Could we ever truly atone for the monstrosities we had unleashed? As the last subject underwent the transformation, our team gathered in a moment of somber reflection. The lab, now marked by the aftermath of our desperate struggle, bore witness to the dichotomy of our pursuits, the noble quest for healing and the perilous journey into the unknown. The news of our experiment's catastrophic turn had leaked beyond the confines of our lab, casting a harsh spotlight on our actions. The scientific community, once supportive, now questioned the ethics of our endeavors. The world, too, grappled with the implications of a cure that had become a curse. Our journey was far from over. The subjects, now restored but forever changed, faced an uncertain future. The scientific community demanded answers, and the weight of responsibility hung heavy on our shoulders. In the aftermath of the storm, we found ourselves at a crossroads, a choice between fading into obscurity or facing the consequences of our actions. In the midst of this moral reckoning, the team held onto a fragile hope, the hope that our journey, marred by tragedy and ethical quandaries, could pave the way for a more conscientious approach to scientific discovery. The pursuit of progress, we realized, must be tempered by humility and an unwavering commitment to the ethical implications of our actions. As we emerged from the shadows of our own creation, the lab stood as a testament to the fragility of human ambition. The cure we sought had become a cautionary tale, a reminder that the pursuit of knowledge must be guided by a profound respect for the intricate balance of life itself.